Hey everyone, this is session 6, week 8, almost there, almost so close yet so very far. My name's Nathan.
I'm Jenna.
And we're doing navigation and actually finishing up the demo app too. So as a review, we learned what CSS is, again, just cascading style sheets, basically makes your website look really pretty. We learned what components are, and then we also learned what props are. The components, remember, again, are reusable, essentially sections of code in which you can have like particular attributes or props. All right, so for today's agenda, we'll be covering navigation. We'll be actually creating a nav bar, and then we're going to add the feed page and profile page, our 2 pages on our app. And Jenna is going to lead us through feed posts and finishing up the profile page as well. So first of all, what is navigation in a web app? Well, I mean, if you look at our lovely ACM hack website, you can see there's like a general thing. Oh, I have a label. And then you see up here, right? There's different sections for home, blog, events, about, and archive. Notice how when you click on one of them, it leads you to a different page. And essentially, that is the entire idea of navigation. You can also see this in your lovely My UCLA, where you have, my features, classes, academics, finances and jobs, campus life, et cetera, et cetera. So each one that you click is going to lead you to a different page, and that's essentially what navigation is. So our goal is multiple pages. As you can see here, we have both a feed page and a profile page. So we want to be able to kind of code it in such a way such that it goes between both pages here. But how? Anyone have any idea of how we can do this? Anyone work with React navigation before? Yes? No? You have a slight idea? Yeah.
Honestly, it's like I've used it before, and I just like, oh, this is how you do it, and then like it's what I saw it.
Honestly, fair enough. Fair enough. Exactly, React Router DOM. That's what it is. React Router, it is an open source package that implements navigation in React for us, which is great. And again, since we're using Yarn as our package manager, we're going to run yarn add React Router DOM. That'll import the entire package for us, and we're able to use all of its components as we please. I've gone ahead and linked the documentation here for you to peruse and/or, I don't know, copy, which is totally fine too. Okay, so how do we actually use React Router? So React Router DOM has many components for navigation. In our implementation, we've used 4 components, and those 4 components are browser router, routes, route, and nav link. So browser router essentially provides the context for all of these to work. You have to have a router in your app. If you don't have one, then you can't use routes or route, right? Or nav link for that matter. Routes defines all your routes. A singular route is one route that you're going to be writing. And then a nav link is something that you can use to basically link to different routes that you've already kind of defined. All right, so how do we actually use React Router? So in app.js, for example, we can have a section that defines our routes. Notice how we have routes as a component, and then we're going to be defining each individual routes. So for example, this one is some path, and then we have feed, and then we have profile. Notice how the path prop is the path that we want to give, and the element prop is we're passing in some components. That is just essentially how it works. So we've essentially here defined 3 paths: some path, feed, and profile that will be used later on in our app. Now, how do we use nav link? So with all those defined routes, we are not able to link to those specific pages anywhere within our app. So we can use nav link to some path, go to some page, same thing with feed and profile. And this can be written anywhere within your app. So let's get straight into it. First, some reorganization. We're going to reorganize our files into index.js, app.js, feed page, and profile page. Index.js is going to render the entire app, where we're going to be putting our browser router context provider for us to use navigation. App.js will define all our routes and then render the page components. And feed page is obviously our feed page, and profile page is obviously our profile page. Any questions on why I chose to organize it this way? Cool. And like I found some really nice organized cats. So all right, let's get straight into the demo. So first of all, in index.js, I'm going to import browser router from React Router DOM, that package that we were talking about, and I'm going to be adding that browser router component. So if we go into here, my index.js currently looks like this. Currently looks like this. And I'm going to be importing, sorry. This one. All right, this is what we're going with. So I'm going to be importing browser router DOM. Import browser router from React Router. And I'm going to be adding that context right here. And then my app is going to go within that right here. So now what I've essentially done is I've essentially given my app the context for browser router. So AKA it can now use routing. Cool. Any questions so far? Nice. So that was essentially what I did in index.js. Next, feed page.js. So in our previous, in last week's workshop, everything that we had was stored in app.js, right? We had the feed page there, and that was the only functionality that our app could do. But now that we're going to have multiple pages, it makes sense to separate out the different pages. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually just copy paste everything in app.js and make it into its new separate file called feedpage.js. Again, I'm going to rename the function that gets exported, rename the export statement, and then make sure I have the correct directories for any import statements that I have. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to create a new folder or directory called pages. And within that, I'm going to be making a feed page.js. And then I'm going to go into app.js. I'm going to copy all of this. And then I'm going to paste all of this. And then I'm going to change the export statements and the function itself as well. And I'm going to make sure that I have my proper import statements. So since I made a subdirectory, I need to change this import statement so that it gets the correct components. And I need to change this import statement so it also gets the correct components. And this one as well. All right, any questions so far of what I did? I essentially just moved some code around. Yep. Yeah, it's being recorded. Yeah. Essentially, all I did was copy paste all my code and move it to a new file so that I can now have app.js do something different for it. Yeah. Speaking of which, now, oh, not yet, but profile page.js, I'm just going to simply create it for now. And Jenna will implement it. So I'm kicking the can down the road, but I'm getting everything set up for her. So in pages, I'm going to be creating a profile page. And I'm going to be yoinking code from here. There. You don't need to worry about exactly what is typed here. This is just some boilerplate code so that Jenna can do her demo as well. All right, moving on. And now app.js is blank, right? So this is where we actually implement our navigation. So as you notice, we have importing route and routes from the package that I mentioned earlier, React Router DOM. And I'm going to be creating my routes here and defining each route. Notice that there are three. The one difference is route index. This index pop basically means that this is going to be the default page that loads if you don't give it any paths. So as soon as you get onto this app, it's going to load the feed page. You can change this to anything that you want, but it just must be a valid component that you have. All right, so let's go ahead and run through the changes I'm going to make to app.js. So currently app.js is blank. I'm obviously going to import all my React. Obviously, I'm going to be importing stuff that I need. I'm going to be importing route and routes, and I'm going to be importing the feed page and the profile page. So one extra thing, I'm going to move app.js into my pages. And once it does, move it, and then I'm going to update my import statements. Nice. So I have all my imports, and now I'm going to actually be creating my app. And in this app, I'm simply just going to be returning basically my entire app that I have here. So all my styles are already done. AKA I've loaded them all in, as you can see here. It's just from, outside time of me kind of playing around with my styles. So I have an entire div, and then I'm going to define all my routes here. I'm going to pass in the index elements and then the couple paths here. All right. So here I've defined my routes and 3 of my individual routes. The feed page is I'm going to be using as an index routes, and I have /feed and /profile. And the last thing that I need to do is remember to export this all. And that should do it for me. Any questions on app.js or why we changed it to be this way? Cool. All right, now we're going to be creating a nav bar. So I'm going to be creating the entire layouts. I'm going to be creating the nav link components and using the nav link components. And I'm going to import any images, such as the hack logo, in which I've decided to do. So under components, I'm going to create a new file called navbar.js. And what this navbar is going to do is I'm going to have some import statements here. I'm going to cheat a little bit and just yoink those import statements from what I already have. And then I'm going to write my function. It's simply just going to return something, but it's going to return some styling that I'm going to get. I've now created a div with this class name navigation, and then within that, I'm holding some other stuff. Class name navigation. And then within that, I have another div with this class name nav. And then here, this is where I'm going to be creating my links. So I'm going to have a nav link. As mentioned here, I have a nav link it's going to go to feed, and its class name is going to be link as I've styled, and it's going to say feed. And I'm going to create another one in the same way. And this is going to go to profile. So now that I have my nav links, my 2 buttons will work. And then I'm going to simply join the code that I already have to get the right side of my nav bar working. Okay, so here we have navigation with our nav links, and our logo on the right side, so you can go to the lovely websites, ACM hack.ucla.acm.com. And I'm going to export this. Cool. Any questions so far on what I did with navigation? Nope. Great. All right. So now we have a working out for 2 pages. Let's make sure that we do and debug if necessary. I'm going to run this, and I'm going to I'm going to also start my backend. All right. Oh, so where's the nav bar, you may ask? Well, I never added it to my app, so that's why there's no nav bar. So we're going to fix that real quick. In app.js, we're going to be importing the nav bar. And right here, I'm going to be giving nav bar. All right, and so if we go back, you should see a beautiful nav bar right here. Yay, it's here. And if I click on feed, it'll bring me to feed. Click on profile, it'll bring me to profile. Notice how it's blank because there's no code in there. It should be blank. And so if I click onto feed, yay, woohoo. Also notice how the very first time that it loaded, it brought me directly to the feed page because that was the index that I specified. Cool. Any questions on nav bars and how to get navigation? Great. Oh yeah. Yeah, there is. So you can just, you would just specify, like, let's say we have this specific component here that's going to be rendered when you do /feed/ like James, for example. You can simply just add a new route that gives you /feed/ James. Yeah, it would be inside the routes. You have to define a new route, essentially. Yeah. Coolio. All right. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to help us finish our feed post.
Okay. Does anyone know what should be going in our feed post file? Anyone? No? Okay. So feed post is basically here to help our like posts look nice. So what are some things you guys notice about the posts? Like it can just be anything. Yes? Yeah, that's right. So the components to feed post is basically we have a name on top to let people know that you posted something. We have a message, we have a date, time, and a deleting function in case you want to delete the message. So those are the things we're going to be including in our feed post function. So in our feed post function, we want the ID, which is just automatically assigned by Mongoose. Then we want delete post in case you want to delete your content. Then we want content in case you want to post something, and we want the timestamp so people know when you posted your message. So we're going to start with name. We have a constant variable named user for James. Originally, we actually had like an actual user, but that's because we had user authentication. And if you have user authentication, you can pass in the name you want as a parameter, so you can have different users on your social media app. And then for deleting posts, we wrote this code here. It's basically checks if you pass in a deleting code, delete post when you create a feed post, and if you did pass it in, then it'll show a trash can icon, and if you don't pass anything in, the trash can icon won't show. So we want the trash can icon to show in our feed, but we want it to show on our profile page, but we don't want it to show on our feed. So on our profile, we'll pass it in, and on our feed, we won't. And this is because we just want them to be able to delete stuff in their profile page, but not on the feed. So basically, it means that when you click the icon, you'll just delete the post. It's pretty straightforward. And then we have the image on the bottom. And then here we have the content, which is just the message. I think this is also pretty self-explanatory. It's just some text that you pass in for your message. And we have two divs around it. These are just for styling and CSS. And you can see the CSS on the right. It's a lot, but you can play around with the CSS as you like. And then next we have timestamp. Originally our timestamp was just a long string of numbers, and we want to change it so our timestamp actually turns into the date and the time. So what we want to do is create a new date with the timestamp. And if you don't remember, timestamp is just date.now, which gets the number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. And then after that, you want to use that time to create a date and time using the methods toLocalDateString and toLocalTimesTring. What this method basically does is that you pass in the locals, which is just the language or local tags. And then because we're American, we have EN-US. And then the options, according to the documentation, it's just an object that contains one or more properties that specify comparison options. I think it just means you have different options for what you want to be displayed. So for the time string, we want hour and minute, and we want numeric. And for the day string, we want year, month, day, and we want it to be 2 digits. Two digits just basically means it's showing 2 digits. And numeric, I think, will automatically convert it. So it's just a number. So for example, for the time in the previous line, it says numeric, and that's so it shows the time as like 9:30 instead of 09:30. I think it just looks nicer that way, but it's just different. Let's do demo. So we want to create our feed post. That will go in components. I think some of you guys might already have it, but we're just gonna create it from scratch. .js. And then we want to import React on the top. Oh my god, your keyboard is really big. From React. And then we also want to import our trash can image. We already imported it into our image folder. You can also find the trash can image from Google Images or anything. Okay. And then now we also want to have a constant user called James for our user. And then we're going to create the function feedPost. And in here, we want to have our content, timestamp, ID, and delete post. And then here, we want to create our dates that we have. So we have const numerical time equals new date and stamp. And then we're going to create our date variable, which will just use the time we have. Oh. And then toLocalDateString. And then for the language, for the local, we want EN-US. And then the year, 2-digit. And the month will also be 2-digit. And then now we want our time, which will be really similar. It'll be basically the same thing, except it'll be to local time string. This will also be EN-US. And we'll have the hour as numeric and the minute as numeric. And then after this, we will be returning what our feed post looks like. And then the first thing we want to do is have our user, but we're gonna just surround this with a div for now. And the class will be feed post. And then we want another one. This one will just be post top. And it'll just organize the things on the top, which are the name and the trash icon. Here we want our user. And then now we're gonna create our delete post function here. And we're gonna have another div. And on click, we want it to delete the post. And we want to add our image on the bottom. And we'll have another div that closes on the bottom. Okay, and then here we'll have our null. Okay, and that is our deleting. And then now we'll have our content below. We'll have another div. The class name will be content. And another div. And this one will be text. And inside these, we just want the content. And that is it for our content. And now we want the dates on the bottom. So we'll have a div for the dates. And in here, we'll have the date and time that we just implemented on the top. And the time will be the same thing. There. Don't forget to export. And I think that should be good. Okay, there. It looks really nice. And now we have our feed posts. And now we're gonna want to work on our profile since there's nothing here. Now we're gonna create our profile page. So what are some things you notice about the profile page? Does anyone want to share? No. Okay. So on the profile page, we have the profile picture. We have a welcome message. We have the title for your post to let people know that it's their post that are down there. And we also have feedpost.js, which we just created. So to set up our profile page outside the function, we want some import statements. And this is what Nathan set up for us. And inside the function, we want to update the post whenever set post is called. So we use state for this, and it will just be const post set post equals use state, and this will just update it. And we also want to call get post once at the start, and we will use effect for this, and it will just be get post. Now we're gonna write some get post and deleting post functions, and these are really similar to some functions we've written in the past, but I'm just gonna go over it just so we're familiar with it. So get post will be an asynchronous function, and you'll use Axios to make an HTTP GET request to the URL +/feed, and then you want to use await. Does anyone know what await is used for, or like remember? Yeah, so it just waits for the response to be returned before proceeding with the code execution. And if it's successful, then response.data is passed to the setPost function, which updates the post. And if an error occurs, console.error is used to log the error to the console. And now we also have a delete post function. This is also an asynchronous function, and we use Axios to make an HTTP delete request to the URL +/feed/id /delete plus ID. And the ID is what we included in the feed post, and it just helps them to recognize which post specifically needs to be deleted. And again, if an error occurs, console.log error is used to log the error to the console. And here is the actual content of what the profile page looks like. It looks like a lot of code, but it's pretty simple. So we have profile button on the top. That's the profile picture. Profile button is just a component that we already made. It's just like 4 lines of code with like a nav link to the profile page and a picture of the profile picture. And then on the below, we have a welcome message that just says welcome user. User is yet again set to James. And for the title for your post, it's just a simple paragraph text. And then we later want to map the posts so we can see all the posts that belong to this person. So we'll have the feed post down there that we created, so you can see the posts that are there. And all of the things in between are parameters. We also have a key parameter, and that's just because it's necessary to have a key for the feed post. And then you want to reverse the map on the bottom so you can see the most recent post on top. So we are going to write this code. Okay. So we have all the things imported here, and we just want to add James here too. Okay. And then we have the start of our profile page. There's nothing in here, but we're gonna get started. So first we want a const post set post. We want to do use state. And then next, we're gonna create our function for get post. So this is an async function, get post. And we're gonna try and get the response. And then we're gonna set our post to whatever response data we get. And then we're gonna try and catch any errors that might happen. And then we're gonna log it to the console. Okay, and that is our function get post. And now we're gonna write our async function delete post. It's pretty similar. So we're gonna use Axios. And we're gonna delete whatever post we want to delete. And then we also want to catch any errors that might occur during this. And then log it to the console as well. Okay. All right, and that should be it for our delete post function here. And now we want to use effect to get the posts at the very beginning. And then in here, we're going to leave this one blank. Right, and now we're going to return what our profile page looks like. So we want a div here for the app profile. And then we want another div for return. And then in between here, we're just going to put the profile button. And then we have another div for info. And then we're just going to write welcome user. And that should be it for the top part. And now we're going to have your posts. We have a custom style for this. And we want it to say your post. Great. Now we want it to show the feed posts that we have. And to do this, we're going to map the posts that we have. And we want to create a feed post. And for the content, we'll put post.content. And for delete post, because we want the trash can icon to be showing, we'll put delete post. For ID, we have post._ID. And for the timestamp, we have post.timestamp. And then for the key, we have post.ID. Okay. That should be good. And then at the very end, we want to reverse it. So the most recent posts are on the top. And that should be it. Okay. And this is our profile. And you can see that we have the welcome message on top. We have the profile picture here. We have your post. And we have the feed post down here with the date, the time, the trash can icon. So if you forget to delete something. I think that's it. Right? Where are the buttons? Okay. And then now we have a challenge for you, and that is to implement user authentication.
And I have a couple of tips for user auth. So you can use context. Essentially what you're doing is you're passing in a special, like you define your token hooks to kind of save the entire user and get the context. You have authentication tokens, and then remember how I said the index page, right? It makes sense to now not show immediately the feed page, but to show the login page, right? And you'll need to create some new backend endpoints that help with logins or sign up or logouts. And then a simple implementation of what we did is in our GitHub. It's UCLA ACM/StackSchool demo. And there's a good luck hat because you're definitely going to need them for user auth. But yeah, that kind of concludes our workshop today. Thanks for coming. If you've been with us if this is your first workshop or this is like your sixth one, please fill out this feedback form. We really do use feedback to kind of improve. It's just a couple like click questions. There's no required questions. We just want to get as much feedback as possible. But yeah, thank you so much